Now, the HSE have been hit with a raft of problems, from nurses' strikes to rising flu numbers. Health Minister Simon Harris has been accused of having a case of out-of-touchitis.
Joining us to discuss this and the other stories making the news this morning is Ellen Gunning, Director of the Irish Academy of Public Relations. But
first, for the latest on the healthcare issues, I'm joined on the line now by the Assistant National Director for Public Health and Child Health, Dr. Kevin Kelleher from the HSE. Good morning, Dr. Kelleher. Thank you for taking our call. Let's talk about the influenza problem or flu problem. You've had 151 patients diagnosed so far this year. You've also had 6 deaths over the last couple of weeks, and we haven't hit peak flu season yet, which you're expecting in 6 to 8 weeks.
That's correct. We came into the flu season last week, and it normally lasts anything between 8 to 12, 14 weeks. So we'd expect it to hit the top of its element this year in the next 4 or 5 weeks, and then decline there and afterwards. So we'd have that period. Now, with flu, the best thing you can do is get the vaccine, and there's still time for people to get the vaccine at the moment. So you can still go to your GP or to the pharmacist and get the vaccine, and that will help protect you.
OK. At the start of every flu season, you and health professionals identify, I mean, it's a bit of a lottery, a roll of the dice. You try and identify which flu strain you think we're going to get hit with. You've been on the money this year, so the vaccine this year will, if you get it now, will actually ensure that you don't have any problems, won't it?
Well, it reduces your chance of getting the flu, and even if you do get the flu, it means the flu is much less severe than it would be. So it's of that nature. It's the best thing we can do. There's little to treat flu, so it's an issue. The real issue with flu is that for the vast majority of us, we can cope with it and it's not a problem. But for a number of people, it causes really very severe disease. That's more often than not people who have already got pre-existing illnesses, such as diabetes or asthma or bronchitis, or if you're over 65, over 70. So they're the people that get the really problems with it. That's what we're trying to protect, is those people, so that they don't get very severe disease, which then becomes quite difficult to treat.
OK, Dr. Kevin Kelleher, who's the Assistant National Director for Public Health and Child Health at the HSE, thank you very much indeed. And his advice is, get it now in the next week to 2, and you'll be OK. And they pretty well have the strain that is affecting most people identified this year, so the vaccine will work.
Ellen, it's listening to Dr. Kelleher there, and he mentioned that the next 8 to 12 weeks are the danger period. But many will be forgiven for thinking, Christmas is over and done with now. We're coming into warmer time of the year, spring, the days are getting longer. We're out of the danger zone, but not so.
I was really surprised, because generally you hear all the ads for get your vaccine in September, October. And actually I heard an ad this morning on radio for go out and get your vaccine. And I can't remember ever hearing an ad in January before. You sort of assume, you're right, that it's Christmas, it peaks, and then you're heading into the springtime. It's really unusual that apparently in the Northern Hemisphere, January and February are always the worst months. I suppose we should kind of guess it, because early January is always bad in terms of hospitals and people getting chest infections. So flu is bound to hit a bit more.
We've had a mild delayed winter so far, Ellen. Let's talk about the health system in general. There's a very good article in the Examiner this morning by Caroline O'Doherty, and she basically says, and I'll give you just one of the quotes: emergency departments are overflowing, GPs are swamped, waiting lists are out of control, mental health services are in crisis, staff are in exodus, nurses are about to strike. The list of ailments affecting the health service is long, serious, and one would think obvious, but apparently not to the Minister for Health, because he's going to set up a review, another review. And he's going to get a bunch of PR consultants to come in. Now, not health consultants, PR consultants to come in, and then they're going to ask everybody what they think the health services priority should be. Should they not know that already?
I don't think this is a review, OK? I think what he's doing is he's asking people what do they want him to deal with, so that he can then deal with it. That's effectively what he's bringing in the consultants to do. He set a budget of 75,000, and he said that they will deal with a team of senior managers, 50 senior managers. That's not a team, that's a whole department. But what I find fascinating is it's modern politics. It's how politics is done in America, it's how politics is done in the UK, that you do all of these this research among people, and you ask them, what do you think the issues are, so that you can then be seen to address the issues that people are worried about. I think it's entirely the wrong way to govern. I think we elect a government and we expect the government to say, actually, these are the issues that are top of the agenda. This is what we're dealing with. And then you bring in consultants to help you communicate what you're doing.
Do a
not
focus
the other way
group,
around.
get a focus group, do a review, set up an inquiry, release a report which will go on a shelf and gather dust like all the other ones.
A complete waste of money, I would think.
And no work on the ground. But what you do is go onto social media, Twitter, people are chatting non-stop about it. I mean, it's very obvious about the problems.
It's obvious if you want to get public feedback. And he also is surrounded by, the Minister has the HSE, he has the department behind him. He can call in his key people and say, not what are people talking about, what are the key issues that we need to tackle?
Yeah. Now, the Psychiatric Nurses Association are planning a strike, 6,000 employees. That's going to affect the beginning of February, I believe.
I think this is fascinating because 95% of their people actually voted for strike action, which is more or less the same statistic as the Irish Nurses and Midwives organisation. There's a huge dissatisfaction among nurses out there. What's fascinating with the psychiatric nurses is the way that they've cross-timed with the INMO. So they're saying that they will put a ban on overtime. And that will begin on January 31st and continue into February 1st. The INMO have their first full day of strike on January 30th. They're then moving into an overtime ban 5, 6, 7 February, which is 3 days of strike with the INMO. But the lovely piece is that for Valentine's, 12th, 13th and 14th, we will neither have psychiatric nurses nor regular nurses working because they're both out on strike. I think this is a real crisis for Simon Harris. This is where his focus should be.
And shocking stats as well. 40% increase in vacancies between November 2017 and 2018.
And the HSE apparently with no identified numbers of staffing that they believe is adequate for nursing in Ireland.
Let's move to the front page of the Irish Independent, and the headline there, property tax bills at risk of crippling with €500 hikes. Now, when the property tax levels were set originally, there was a finish date and it was going to be reviewed. This is the last year of that. So whatever you're paying now, it's definitely going to go up, but it could, in some cases, go up by €500. There's talk of the average house price when it was originally set back in 2013 was 150,000 and the bill would have been 225 a year. The latest house price data says that the average house price is 256, which means the bill for an average home will rise to 495, an increase of 270. But, I mean, as we all know, average prices are, like 256 is the lower end of average house price.
And at that lower end, you're looking at a 100% increase on the figures that you've just quoted. You've gone from 240 to an additional 270 up to 490 or something. The figures are crazy. I think what's happened is that the government needs to look at the fact that we're coming out of the back of one of the worst recessions we've ever had. They introduced a property tax. I've never been a fan of property tax. I don't know why we all work so hard to get a mortgage, to buy a house, and then pay for the privilege of having one. I'm not a supporter. But I did see a super suggestion somewhere yesterday, and they said, basically what the government can do is, if you have a property tax, reduce the percentage charge. Now, they've allowed the county councils to do this, and I think 2 or 3 of the Dublin councils did. Fingal certainly did. I think Dunleary might have done it as well, where they actually reduced the percentage paid by the householders. I think they could reduce the bottom line percentage right across the country so that the government doesn't lose an income, but it doesn't gain additional income. So it just forecasts for the same amount of money coming in for the next 12 months. Okay. I think we'd live with that.
We can't get through any of these without either a Brexit chat or a Donald Trump chat this morning. Brexit, we'll have enough of that next week, so we'll just we'll go with Donald Trump. Speaking in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, here was how President Trump rationalised his decision to build the border wall.
They say a wall is medieval. Well, so is a wheel. A wheel is older than a wall. And I looked, and every single car out there, even the really expensive ones that the Secret Service uses, and believe me, they are expensive. I said, do they all have wheels? Yes. Oh, I thought it was medieval. The wheel is older than the wall. You know that? And there are some things that work. You know what? A wheel works and a wall works.
Well, that was one of the humdingers. The other one, of course, was, well, maybe I will. Probably I will. Definitely I will. That line, which we didn't show this morning. I mean, you've advised politicians and you've advised leaders in business and heavy hitters right across society. How do you deal with a man like that? How do you make sense of that?
There are two fascinating things here, right? One is the visuals and the other is the soundbite. The visuals are amazing. Look at the visuals. He is wearing a peaky cap that says, "Make America Great Again." He is absolutely targeting his audience. He's sitting in front of guns and drugs and things that have come across the wall. He's at the wall. He's saying Mexicans are bad people. All of these drug traffickers and people traffickers are coming across the wall. We must stop it. So when you look at it visually, you think this is a man who's in control. There's a huge problem
So it's a pure
here.
masterpiece, you're saying, Ellen, in that regard.
Yes, beautiful visually, right? Then he starts to speak and he just hasn't prepped. Normally he's very good. Build that wall. Make America great again. He speaks in very short sound bites. He spoke for too long and he kept speaking. He got himself tied up in knots. I think he either hadn't enough time, because I don't imagine he's particularly prepped by people. I think he probably preps his own sound bites. He's good at it. He knows how to reach his audience. I don't think his audience will particularly notice that one. I think the rest of us were left watching it going, a wheel, a wall. I can't make a connection.
And maybe definitely a probably.
I think what he's trying to do, actually, interestingly, is he's trying to say to the Democrats, there are 800,000 civil servants. I mean, it's very hard. Normally, we don't have any sympathy for civil servants because you think, well, they're in permanent pensionable jobs, they can't be fired. You look at the Americans and you think, oh, but this is unreal.
Federal employees without pay.
They're not being paid. 21
now?
days. Yeah. I saw a woman on television yesterday saying that she'd applied for a mortgage and she wasn't sure now she'd get one because the bank or whoever would say, but you're not in a good job. I think what he's doing is he's playing ball with the Democrats and he's playing tennis with the Democrats. And he's saying, look, if you give me my wall, I will allow these people back in to work. But if you don't, I may have to declare an emergency. The wall was one of the key planks of his election. He has to be seen to get something.
OK,
thank you.
Let's leave it at that.
A pleasure.
Plenty more to come on the programme. We'll be back after the short break.